Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you on Sunday, October the 3rd. The year is 2021. Let's talk trading. It's time for the weekly opening gap. These videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine. So, it looks like we gapped down on the pound. We filled the gap, but we are now 12 pips below the weekly open. You can see that this opening range from Friday is huge. Big opening range here. Notice we barely broke through the top of it, and now we're pushing back through the opening range for the year and below, right below there, the opening range for the year, we're 4 pips below and 104 pips off that yearly open to the downside. And looking at the month, you can see we are 66 pips above the monthly open. Which something seems a little off here. Oh, this is the monthly open here. That's right. We're looking at a monthly chart. And there's the monthly pivot. And 2 days ago, we had an inside bar. We're still above that inside bar range, only 20 pips at the moment. We might dip in below it and then maybe come out of either one side or the other. And let's see, so far on the month, you can see we have a looks like about 143 pip range on the month. Right now, talking about range, we are 6 hours into the trading day. No pairs are over 100. It looks like the pound may want to hit the pivot point, but you see we gapped down. We closed that gap. Now look to return to the pivot. Buy zone traders were rewarded if they took that buy zone trigger. And remember, in the first hour on most platforms, the spread's crazy, so you don't even look. I mean, you could have a 20 or 30 pip spread, so you don't even look to go short there. Rat, only 42, 43 pips range, so no rat trades at the moment, even though there's a slight separation in the rat zone. It looks like we've taken out that weekly pivot at 135.63, monthly pivot at 135.99, and the daily pivot at 135, call it 20 or 19. So price near pivot point. It wants to say go long. We'll have to wait and see. Funny thing is about the past week or so, the ranges have seemed to be on the high side, but actually they're back to normal. It was those previous weeks where the ranges were on the low side. And just looking at this chart, I see a return bar here and a return bar here. So look to see, maybe get the price of 136.71 and also 134.73. Price usually returns to the open of these return bars. Hence the name return bars. Now we've got interesting play here. We've got a mispivot on the top from 3 days ago. And we haven't hit our pivot today. The wick zone in and out, just barely broke through the top, and then we're coming out the bottom. And I'm looking at the price, 135.40, affectionately known as the launch pad. And you can see we had this H1 candle, this huge candle, which I would call a return bar. And once again, price returned to the open of the return bar. Now we can look at the ranges, looking at last week's. We had a 317 pip range last week. We didn't break out of the high, but we did break out of the low. I think I detailed that in the weekly wrap up, but usually when I make the video, we still have a few hours left. So now we know what happened for sure. High minus close, it's 37, and the close minus, well, right now. And then last week, 177 and 140. So if you were a red rat or a green rat, you definitely could have made money playing out of that weekly rat zone. And so far for the traders who like to trade the buy zone, high minus open 27, open minus low 16. So there were a few pips to be had even in the first 6 hours of the trading day. Now looking at the price action simple here. And we have it spaced every 25 pips so we can do the psychological trades. So once again, this early on a Sunday/Monday, not much happening. And even here, this M5 big bar, I would call that a return bar, and price returned to it. In fact, I'm working on a new indicator. Actually, I've just been testing it. It's a return bar for moving average distance. So it'll be interesting. We'll go over it when I release it sometime this month. Yeah, that's just a little tease. Okay. On the higher low, lower high chart, you can see here we had a 3-ball with a bear candle. It opened above, crossed below, take that signal. Might have made a few pips. Let's see. I don't recall any hard questions over the weekend. But one thing I just like to remind traders is that you can trade your plan flawlessly and still lose money, and you could just airball a trade and make money. But the thing is, when you have a plan, you're not basing it on any particular single trade. You're basing it on the aggregate of trades, 50 trades, 100 trades. That's what you want to remember. So take your losses in stride. And if you can do that, you should be okay. I put a crypto trade on, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and then the price moved against me, but I just put in a take profit for a 10% gain, and it hit it. And then, of course, I probably left another 10 or 20% on the table, but you know what? That's okay, because I thought it was going to hit a certain number, and it did. That trade was profitable. So there's no sense in me thinking about what I could have had. I need to focus on what I did and what I accomplished. And sometimes you'll hear me talk about leaving pips on the table, but really it's best not to think that way. Now, if you leave pips on the table because you managed your emotions rather than a trade, that's one thing. But if you set that TP based on what you see or what you want, and price blasts through it, and you wind up thinking, "Oh, if I would have just set it higher or something," that's what's going to get you into trouble. That's really is a path to ruin. So, you know, I noticed that a lot of the other traders, they keep talking about method, 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 and I really don't really talk much about methods because, as I've stated previously in many videos, once you put that trade on, doesn't matter why you put the trade on. It's all now about managing the money and managing the risk. It's about taking profit when you get the opportunity, and it's about exiting before things get really bad and your risk is blown. And it's just one of those things where you're never going to be perfect, but you can still strive for perfection. So remember that what you're not trying to do is win every trade per se. Yes, every time you enter a trade, you want to win. But what you're looking at is at the end of the session or sessions or whatever period, however long it is, you want to come out ahead of the game. Whether it's 1%, 10%, or 100%, doesn't matter. Whole idea is to come out ahead. You got to remember, you're up against some of the best and the brightest who have more money and faster computers and better information and access. So if you can walk away, with a few pips in your pocket every day, you should give yourself a pat on the back. Job well done. I mean, when you really think about it, look what you're up against. It's incredible when you think about it, and that's why you have to have your mind right, as the captain in Cool Hand Luke would say. And part of getting your mind right is having, reasonable expectations and knowing to take things in stride. Even if you get beat up, 2, 3 trades in a row, just take it in stride, keep taking your signals. Now, if your signals aren't working, and you can go back and say, hey, you know what, for the last 100 days, these signals, they're just not working, then it's time to go back and rerun statistics, and maybe you need to make some adjustments to where you enter, where you take profit. But Walmart and I, we started out with the DSR system, based off the 3 ball. Then I introduced the lower high, higher low, and sometimes they overlap. But it's just one of those things where we just take the signal. And we know sometimes it's not going to work out. And what really sucks, but you can't help it, is when that first trade doesn't work out. So instead of you going for 10 pips, now you got to make up, 3 or 5 or 7 pips plus still get the 10. But based on statistics, you get in there, you keep taking the signals, you'll wind up getting it. Sometimes you get it on the next trade, all of it. So, fellow traders, I hope you had a fun and safe weekend. I wish you a profitable trading week this week. And when you sit down at your trading platform, always remember, never forget, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. This is TheRumpledOne, over and out. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, please. Thank you.